Alright everyone, we start off today talking about General Milley's alleged treason. Remember, he's the general who allegedly, right after the January 6th fiery but mostly peaceful protests, said, oh no, Trump might try to use nuclear weapons against China to stay in power, because that makes a lot of sense, ending the world. And so I'd better illegally, secretly make a phone call to the Chinese field office over there and tell them, don't worry, we took the nuclear football away. So basically for the next 2 weeks, where we've got our pants down around our knees. So do whatever the fuck you want, China. Essentially it was a dog whistle, I guess, for them if they wanted to invade another country without any repercussions. Interesting, considering the timing in Hong Kong. There are actually legacy media outlets that are attempting to circle the wagons because they're afraid that if Milley goes down, it will bring Biden down too. Because, it'll be laid bare for people. A top-ranking general committed treason. Orange Man not actually bad. Orange Man did nothing wrong. Milley was the one that was crazy, and that would, I think, break the cognitive dissonance to an extent. And so they're afraid of that. But some of the legacy media outlets are like, well, no, Milley needs to go. Yeah, maybe he even had his heart in the right place. Some of them do the middle of the road thing. Maybe he meant well, but this is unacceptable. That's a bridge too far. And they try to limit it to Milley did a wrong thing. Not, hey, the dude continuing to employ Milley and lavishing praise on him, namely Biden, did anything bad. But then other legacy media outlets, a few of them are saying Milley should go. But then, links in the description, you've got CNN, the LA Times, and a few others that are actually defending him. Now, first and foremost, before I get into the laughable defense that they're trying to launch here, keep in mind down below, if you're on YouTube watching me there will be a pinned comment with links to 4 other video hosting sites down in the comments section. Keep in mind, I make 2 exclusive videos a day on those platforms that don't get on YouTube. Now, I would have an extra video today, but for some reason, Amazon allowed my latest edition through. It did the copyright query, and I did it, but it's only available on the Japanese and Canadian and Australian web stores. It's not yet available from the US, and I'm not exactly sure why. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm going to have to email them. Anyway, General Milley, according to the book discussing him, generally speaking, discussing Trump more, but discussing this event, essentially the allegation is treason. There's no other way to define what he did, if that's indeed true, and it seems to be, the Pentagon's not denying it, that he gave aid and comfort to America's enemies. China is a hostile state. It's hostile certainly in the economic and diplomatic sense to U.S. interests. Okay, so that is an enemy. We may not be at war with them, but it's a hostile state, a competing state, especially economically and in every globalistic sense. He gave them aid and comfort. In fact, even the excuses that I think it's the first link in the description here, even the excuses being used to defend him literally invoke that concept. Well, General Milley was worried that the Chinese might get paranoid about this because they think, oh my God, the U.S. is going to be a dictatorship and Trump hates us, maybe he'll nuke us. So you decided to calm their fears because you apparently believe the Chinese are as stupid and paranoid as you, Milley. So you illegally made a phone call stepping out of the chain of command and saying, hey, I won't obey the guy above me. The problem is that you gave them a 2-week window in which you had essentially told them there would be no nuclear reprisal no matter what you do. Yes, you can nuke Taiwan. You can invade Vietnam. You can attack India. We won't do anything about it. At very least, we wouldn't do anything until the next guy's in charge. Now, let me say something else. If a general is capable, because these legacy media outlets, some of them are like, well, he did his job, he protected America, whatever. Okay, if a general can unilaterally decide, apparently not while coordinating even with the rest of brass in a convened meeting, just on their own, if a single general is capable of taking our nuclear deterrent off the table because he feels or she feels that there is a potential threat that the executive branch would actually use that, and I think that in and of itself mostly would be situationally insane to do, and I don't think that most executives would do it. What does that say about our current nuclear deterrent? The current president of the United States, in name of course, the asterisk president, Biden, has Alzheimer's disease. Does that mean that any random U.S. general can call up China tomorrow and say, we know the dude's a fruitcake, but don't worry too much. If he's acting weird, you don't have to worry about a preemptive nuclear strike or anything like that. And the idea, further, that an individual who is supposedly academically trained, generals tend to be, has, the foreign policy chops. Milley's not a dumb person, although I think he acted like a moron in this sense. The idea that that person would be brainwashed into actually believing that there was a threat of a coup in the United States based on a largely unarmed protest. It got out of hand, but resulted at this point in 90% minor misdemeanor charges. And even some of the non-misdemeanor charges, it's not like assault with a deadly weapon or murder or something. It's like, destruction of public property, vandalism, and trespassing are the three big ones there. Some simple assaults, one person did get trampled. Other people around them, they may get more charges as a result, but there was no purposeful killing in the entire thing except for Ashley Babbitt. If he honestly looked at that situation, a few hours of skirmishing that did devolve, admittedly, into a riot, although less deadly than some of the BLM Antifa riots, if he actually thought that was a coup attempt, based on what Trump said, and literally talked to Nancy Pelosi and said, well, don't worry, ma'am, Orange Man won't have nuclear capabilities, and I called China already. And of course that potentially becomes a problem for her, because if she knew about this and didn't alert people and say, hey, this general's gone rogue and I don't know what the fuck is going on, that'd be a problem too. Of course, she is well demented. What does that say about the competence of the U.S. brass, if that's capable of happening? The fact is the call shouldn't have been made. China was not worried about the U.S. randomly nuking it. We don't even have a preemptive strike policy. Trump never fomented it, and the entire idea is so cockamamie that you would have to believe every ounce of political propaganda that's been peddled for the last half-decade to conceive of a situation in which Trump would actually be that insane, because it wouldn't keep him in power. It'd cause him to be destroyed. If he were to nuke China, there would be a reprisal, and D.C. would be bye-bye, and Trump would be, a ghoul. He'd be dead. He'd be in a crater in a pile of ashes. So you'd have to be literally off your rocker insane, totally friggin' nuts to actually do that. Milley, the allegation is, actually believed that that was a possibility. This shows me that even if he's being truthful and he's not just using that as an excuse and saying, well, yeah, Orange Man bad, ha ha ha, or this book is just a character assassination of Trump, this shows me there's a real problem in the military where people who are in command, apparently as well of the nuclear stockpile, are nuts. It's not Trump that's nuts. He told people to go home with peace in their hearts that day. It's like, all right, that's enough, go home. Milley, meanwhile, was freaking out, and even after the fact, a day later, was pretending that there was a coup attempt, when clearly there wasn't. And he would have been, I think, in D.C. on that day. He probably generally knew what was going on. Do you think that if he got a briefing on that, it was like, well, thousands of armed rioters attempted to overthrow the government? How? Oh, by looking at some statuary. They stole the speaker's lectern. It was a big, huge, momentous event. People have blown that out of all proportion, just like they are the pandemic at this point. They compare it with 9/11. I'm thinking to myself, come on, there is no comparison. Several people died that day. The only willful death, the only example of a person being straight up murdered, was the D.C. police shooting a 5'2" unarmed female who attempted to climb through a door. Everyone else, one dude stroked out, one chick got trampled. I think one other person died of unrelated injuries that day, although was there even a fourth death technically? I don't know. No, it's not 9/11. It wasn't, it was nothing. For the most part, it was just a protest that devolved partially into a riot. You got to also understand, Milley looking at that situation would be seeing a situation in which you have 25, 30,000 people show up to hear Trump speak. The majority of them leave. A couple thousand of them actually attack the Capitol building. And at some point, the police just give up and fucking let them in. That's not an insurrection. It's a lapse in judgment. It's disorderly conduct. It's trespassing. In some cases, it's vandalism, simple assault. It's all sorts of things, but it's not sedition. What Milley did, though, was treason, if indeed the allegation was true. And to see the legacy media trying to whitewash what he did, well, after all, Orange Man bad, Milley did a good job. Yeah, Trump, sure, Trump is nuts enough. He would have nuked China to attempt to stay in power. Only a lunatic would believe that. Only a person who has been completely brainwashed by the scummiest propaganda of, ironically, these same sites like CNN could possibly fathom that that would happen. It wouldn't. The plan itself wouldn't make any logical sense. Hey, I'm going to kill 1 billion people and get killed, and this will keep me in power. Well, that doesn't make sense. It's completely goddamn nuts, and it's an attempt, by the way, to dehumanize Trump into the orange, dictatorial, poopy diaper baby that doesn't care about any family or friends or even apparently his own life because he's content with sitting in a nuclear crater for the rest of his short, miserable lifespan, because that's quite literally what would happen in a nuclear conflagration. That's about all. Peace out.